The views expressed in this blog are hosted on my own website, are strictly personal, and do not reflect the views of any organization. Hello and welcome once again to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog, where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. Now, one of the defining images of this past week has been the sight of bulldozers razing homes and structures in the heart of the national capital. Now, demolition drives take place across every part of the country almost every day. What makes this particular demolition drive eye-catching is two things. First, it is in the heart of the national capital where most of the national media resides. But more significantly, it is in the very part of Delhi which witnessed communal violence over the last weekend. Therefore, today I want to ask you 6 questions on what I am calling bulldozer Raj in the country. Questions which I believe every citizen who believes in constitutional democracy must seek answers to. Question number 1. Why was a specific mohalla in Jahangirpuri in the heart of Delhi chosen for this demolition drive, where on the 16th of April a Hanuman procession had led to a communal flare-up? Was the bulldozer a revenge for the riots, intended to send a message to the so-called rioters that enough is enough? After all, the illegal structures in and around the mosque area in the C block of Jahangirpuri, one of the poorer areas in the national capital, have existed for years. So why did the MCD, the Delhi Municipal Corporation, suddenly wake up 72 hours after a communal flare-up on Hanuman Jayanti to act when they haven't done so for years in this area? And is the MCD telling us that this is the only mohalla in Jahangirpuri where illegal structures exist? Or is it, as I suggest, driven by a desire to teach a lesson to those who are allegedly involved in stone pelting and rioting on the 16th of April? After all, the Delhi BJP chief Adesh Gupta had on Tuesday written to the BJP controlled MCD that the illegal encroachments in this particular area should be demolished because the rioters were from there. And this is exactly what happened the very next day. My second question: has the MCD, the municipal authorities, followed the process of law? The Solicitor General of the country, Tushar Mehta, in the Supreme Court says yes. The locals on the ground insist they were given no notice or warning before the demolition. The local mayor there told us that most of these structures are temporary and therefore no notice need to be served. But the fact is, brick and mortar structures were also brought down. Were these done with adequate notice and with giving the citizens a right to reply? Moreover, when the Supreme Court gave a stay order at 11 a.m. on the demolitions, why did the demolitions continue till 1 p.m. on the same day for a full 2 hours? The local officials claim they have not received a copy of the order, but in this age of 24/7 real-time communication, nothing can be more transparently dishonest. A few minutes delay can be understood, but for a full 2 hours you don't have any knowledge? Yes, we have the case in 2020 of actor Kangana Ranaut, where the BMC in Mumbai had also come and demolished alleged illegal structures in her house by giving her only a 24-hour notice and no real right to reply. That was wrong. This is wrong too. Both are classic examples, my friends, of the misuse of state power, which is why we need a full and transparent inquiry whether the local authorities, in a sense, are guilty of contempt of the Supreme Court. Third question: is it now the official policy of the Narendra Modi government, both in the center and in the states in which they rule, that any suspected rioter will be penalized with their homes being bulldozed? Consider this: there is violence in Jahangirpuri on the 16th, demolition takes place 4 days later on the 20th. There is violence in Khargone, Madhya Pradesh on the 10th of April. Bulldozers enter the very next day on the 11th. There is an incident again in Madhya Pradesh in Raisan on March 18. The bulldozers enter on March 20th, 2 days later. There is an incident in Barwani in Madhya Pradesh on 10th. Bulldozers enter the next day on the 11th. There is violence reported in Khambat in Gujarat on the 10th. The bulldozers enter on the 15th. That's 5 days later. In some cases, like in Khargone, we've even seen those who've got Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana cards having their houses demolished. My simple question: under what law can a bulldozer demolish a house that is you call illegal, but the suspicion is that the house is owned by a rioter? Who will compensate if there is any miscarriage of justice, as I pointed out in a case in Madhya Pradesh? Don't also forget the case of a Wasim Sheikh, again from Khargone, whose kiosk was allegedly demolished because he was accused of being a stone pelter, when the fact is Wasim had lost both his hands in a tragic accident in 2008. My fourth question: what moral right do our netas, or some of our netas, have to go ahead and call for bulldozing someone else's house? It is an open secret that land deals, not all legal, are at the heart of the wealth which is being accumulated by our corporators across our metropolises like Delhi, Mumbai and any other big metro. The same Adesh Gupta of the Delhi BJP, who wants to teach the rioters a lesson, was issued a notice last January by the Delhi High Court over allegation that as a councillor he was involved in unauthorized illegal construction on public land. Mr. Gupta is denying those charges, but I ask you today, if a VVIP neta or his or her cronies are involved in illegal construction, in how many instances has a bulldozer been instantly sent to raise the illegality? Truth is, my friends, the rich VIPs in this country can afford rich lawyers. The poor must just accept their fate. Question number 5. Is it that if you are poor, then your so-called illegal structure, be it a scrapyard, a roadside kiosk, one small tenement, a juice shop along the roadside, could be demolished any day? While if you are affluent and powerful, then all that will happen is that your colony will slowly but surely be regularized. In every Indian city, my friends, there are such colonies that have been built illegally on encroached land. The difference is when there is a sprawling housing colony like a Sainik Farms, which houses Delhi's bold and beautiful, there is little chance of it being touched. It will get regularized over time. It is the poor handcart pusher, well, that person ends up being on the street without a roof over their heads. Finally, my sixth question, and this is one that has often troubled me. Why are the well-off in this country so gleeful when the house of the poor gets demolished? If the poor then happens to be a Muslim family, then I am sorry, the glee turns into greater elation. Why? Because a cycle of hate politics has indoctrinated us to believe that those who are responsible for stone pelting must all necessarily be Muslims. They could even be so-called illegal Bangladeshi and Rohingya immigrants who must be punished and taught a lesson. Are we now saying that crime is going to be stereotyped in stark religious terms, whereas stone pelter only belongs to one community? What are we then going to call those who brandish swords on a street during a so-called religious procession which has not been given even permission? When a stone pelter has to be punished, are we also going to take action against those who make threatening and provocative slogans in the middle of the street? All law violators need to be punished. But are we going to treat them even-handedly and equally is a question I ask. Or do I wonder sometimes that is it that we want our streets to be beautified? That we believe that these slums of the poor or those who live in these so-called illegal colonies, these are all an eyesore and they need to be demolished at once. We all dream, my friends, of our 2, 3, 4 BHK homes. often built on, in this country at least, in our sprawling cities, increasingly on what was once agricultural land. But the poor must suffer. They must do the menial jobs in our house. And if they then have life savings to build a one-room home in a congested colony like Jahangirpuri, the bulldozers must reach their doorstep. Very easy, my friends, to sit in our air-conditioned rooms, tweet away, tweet about the misery of others who are thrown out onto the street in the summer heat. I want to make one thing loud and clear in the end. We must have zero tolerance for any kind of violence. There must be severe penalties for all those who may resort to stone pelting and rioting, who believe they can take the law into their hands, whatever be the provocation. No criminal can claim victimhood if you've taken the law into your own hands. But a tough legal system doesn't mean, my friends, a bulldozer Raj, where the law itself is subverted by the heavy hand of state power. If that is what you want, then abandon constitutional democracy and replace the rule of law by autocrats who will rule by firman. It is my view, and it has remained so for a long time, this country doesn't need bulldozers, it needs bridge builders too. Think about it. That was the Straight Bat. Do, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. For now, stay well, stay safe. Namaskar. Jai Hind.